I have the pleasure to introduce the Input-Output Research Hub here at Edinburgh University, I'll be very happy also to introduce Charles Hoskinson, the CEO of Input-Output, who is basically providing the funding for the research. So what I want to start with is there's one thing that you learn as an academic, as a professor, is that you understand and know very little. Like there's one thing that you learn is that. So like even decentralization, like the topic that we were discussing in the previous presentation, this is like technical and computer science, and we still collectively as a community understand very little about how to measure it. And this is just a computer science topic. Nevertheless, what we're talking here is about an information technology infrastructure that aims to serve society as a whole. And it's clear, it has become clear, it has become crystal clear, even in a painful way, over the last few decades, that it is possible to build computer systems that actually, even if they come with the best intentions, they don't serve society in the best possible way. I mean, social media, for example, is coming in the news on and on again. Like, is it the way that we've structured it, the way that these systems have been developed, do they always serve the best interests of society? So, the vision and objectives of the I/O Research Hub is to promote interdisciplinary research in blockchain technology. The idea is to enable researchers of different backgrounds to develop a common language and understanding, and give opportunities, quite importantly, to research areas that are not usually engaged in funded research related to blockchain systems and contribute meaningfully to research and development in that space. So what we have is we have a budget of $4.5 million, which, as I said, was contributed by Input-Output, that will be distributed over 3 annual calls for proposals. The proposals will be solicited by teams of researchers that are at the University of Edinburgh from all schools and colleges. The proposals will be submitted and evaluated in terms of, very importantly, novelty, research novelty, and impact, and what are the relevance to input-output systems and the wide R&D objectives of the company, which I have to say they cover very widely the blockchain space and include foundational research in all areas of blockchain technology. That includes, let's say, economics, social sciences, and a number of topics which I'll have a slide to describe in a few minutes. Key outputs of this research will be always open and open source. There will be no intellectual property, and everything that will be developed will be made publicly available for everyone to use and develop on. The proposals will be assessed by a steering committee, and I have them here, and I also have the pleasure to have them with me. So we have, together with myself at Informatics, we have 4 professors at the university covering business school, architecture, design informatics, and the School of Law: Rafaela Calabrese, Richard Coyne, Chris Speed, and Burkhard Schaefer. And they're all here joining me, so if you don't mind standing up for the audience that is here to see you. The steering committee is here. And it will be a great pleasure to have them with me. And from the IOG side, Dr. Puya Farsim and Dr. Philip Lazos, which I hope they're also here. If you can stand, they're going to be members of the steering committee of that. So with this, I'd like to just say a few words about the planning. The call for proposals will be end of November 2022. And the proposal deadline will be on January, and we're hoping that very soon we will be able to start working on new research. Now, this is a set of topics that I'm just going to leave here, but so that you can get some of the ideas that the research is going to be about. But what I want to say is that interdisciplinary research is going to be a core theme, because that's like a very, very important, very important to do this research together, bringing expertise from different areas. And now with this, I'd like to just invite on stage Charles Hoskinson, the CEO of Input Output, who will join and say a few words about his vision on research and development, because it's thanks to Charles that everything that is related to this lab and this bigger research is feasible. So, Charles, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Good to see a lot of familiar faces here. It's good to be back. The last time I presented in this room, I was on the other side. I'm a little weird like that, where I always remember and I get a little weird. I'm like, I should be over there. I shouldn't be here. Research is the heart and soul of I/O. We started the relationship with University of Edinburgh, I think almost 6 years ago. I'd have to look into the exact date. I'm getting old, so it's hard to remember. But it was a $250,000 commitment, and at the time, that was a huge amount of money for us. You know, we were in Hong Kong and Japan and other places, and we had no material connection to Europe. And I'm from America, so it made sense, why not a U.S. institution? But the reason we chose University of Edinburgh is at the time, there was a major transition, and they've gone so far through it, where they wanted to do not only computing and informatics, but be very interdisciplinary. And the presentation this morning, you saw how they're trying to connect what's happening here in this building to all the buildings on campus. And blockchain is much the same way. When we look at the nature of the systems we build, yes, they're functional data structures. Yes, they have beautiful programming languages you can come up with. In fact, some people in this room are working on them. Yes, there's a consensus algorithm. There's lots of stuff there. But at the end of the day, it's meaningless stuff unless it's connected to problems that need to be solved, connected to everyday people's lives. We worry about things like election integrity. We worry about things like ESG and how do we know people aren't cheating with how much carbon output they have. We worry about things like, how do I know there's actual money in my bank account? And usually the solution is, well, we have a regulator. Well, we have some trusted third party that's going to keep everybody honest. But unfortunately, we tend to live in an age where institutions aren't as trusted as they used to be. And the issue with this is that institutions are required to deal with complexity. What's so cool about the blockchain industry is it's the only industry we got right now that is building protocols, that's actively engaged in trying to ameliorate complexity without introducing new institutions, new power structures, rather replace it with protocols to regulate these things. And the research that's being done here is trying to capture the essence of that. So you, for example, see this Edinburgh Decentralization Index. And what's really cool about it is it's a policy steer. It's useless as just a number. No, it's more than that. The number, how it's measured, the conversation behind it starts 1,000 other conversations amongst 1,000 other institutions. If a regulator is concerned about market stability, this can be a leading indicator that there's a problem, to begin an investigation, to begin a conversation, to start looking at certain entities that score low and say, why is that? What's the story behind that? People will say, well, this index isn't fair. It's biased. It's missing the point. Well, what does that mean? That's peer review. That's the academic process. So people will come and give suggestions. They'll tell us what to change. They'll write their own papers. Competing indexes will form. But at the end of the rainbow, what are we trying to do? We're trying to measure something that's of great significance to this industry as a whole, and ultimately is one of the biggest components of consumer protection. We look at the Zero Knowledge Lab, which will be discussed in a little bit. At the heart of that is this concept of inclusive accountability. If these systems are to be used by millions, eventually billions of people, their use will result in gargantuan blockchains, ones that are in terabytes, petabytes, exabytes of size. Now, there's only two parties that are ever going to be able to store all that, the NSA and Google. So you have to pick which one you want. Maybe Amazon too, I guess. So 3, there you go. Well, what if instead of having to store all that information, all those transactions, all those things, you had a proof that could follow the transaction, let you know that it's real, the tokens exist, what your view of history is right. And that proof can be quite small. Turns out that's a beautiful computer science problem. and it lives in the zero-knowledge cryptography realm, and it's incredibly important for many different domains. And some are about preserving the original intent of these systems, which is everybody has access to the same view, and some are about privacy, confidentiality, selective disclosures. How do we comply with GDPR? Politician can write some stuff down, but at the end of the day, it does require significant changes to the way we communicate and work. And that's just one of thousands of problems. And it's being studied here. Now, another magical thing about this is that it's all open. There's more than 150 publications. I think they count as 163 in the IO family. And we have labs all around the world. One at Carnegie Mellon, one that's a formal mathematics institute. We have a lab at Stanford, and we have people, affiliate professors and graduate students and postdocs pretty much everywhere. The sun never sets on this company. But it's one big family, and everybody writes papers together. And all those papers go through the peer review process, and everybody has access to them, and they can cite them. And some people leave, but when they leave, they still stay. For example, we had a lovely graduate student named Dionysus, and he went on, and somehow, some way, he worked his way over to Stanford, and now he's back at our lab. And there, he just published a beautiful paper called Proof of Stake, which is kind of a derivative of some of the research that he was doing when he was part of our family, proof of work. Now, it has different properties and different adherence, but that just shows you the legacy of things. When people that no longer work with you or for you continue the work, they carry the torch, they have their own students, they have their own papers, they have their own concerns, that is how you build a movement. And that's what we started here 6 years ago, and it's truly grown in that direction. The consensus research we've done here at this university is among the highest cited, some papers over 1,000 citations in our industry, a very young industry. And it's changed the entire conversation of what is proof of stake and how to make it secure. The language research we've done here with Plutus and extended UTXO is the only path, in my view, to give Bitcoin smart contracts, should they pursue it, with the models that they've chosen to embrace. This could potentially be transformative at a scale of trillions of dollars of assets long-term and billions of users, and these design decisions are being made with good principles. So it's a great honor to be part of that, and be part of that story, and watch so many incredible people grow up, graduate students grow up, postdocs grow up. The faces change, but the mission stays the same. And it's a great honor to be with all of you and see all the love and support we've gotten throughout the years, and to be part of this broader conversation. We're all doing our best. We don't always get it right. But what's so cool about it is this is an honest process, one of the last remaining ones I think we have in society. This is a process where we can admit our mistakes, grow together, and learn together, and build together. So thank you all for coming. Aggelos, thank you for all the hard work that you've done and the time you've put in. I think we're both getting a little older from those pictures there. But you've done some incredible work here, and we're real proud of you, and we're real proud to continue investing. One last thing to mention, this, like the Stanford model, is really cool in that it engages and activates the entire university. So you can be top-down or bottom-up. When we began, we were top-down. So we would set an agenda and go and try to find some people that were interested in that agenda. Here, it's bottom-up in that people who are part of the Edinburgh community can now come to the steering committee, which is truly multidisciplinary. I mean, come on. Architecture with law and computer science and business, that's pretty cool. And people from those different domains can come and they can say, hey, we have an interesting, cool idea, and the steering committee can take a look at it and say, hey, let's give some funding to that. So what's so cool about this is that now new ideas that we have never conceived of or thought or imagined are going to come our way. Some will get funded, and the ones that do get funded will actually fundamentally transform, in my view, the industries that they're in. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Charles, very much. And I think that's exactly the point. I think we should have found ourselves here. Proposals. Those of you that are interested, you should make a note of the website. Very soon, we're going to have there a call for proposals, the deadline, and other information about how to write it. A template, let's say, for proposals, etc., will be there. I'd like just to maybe take a few minutes now, just open up to see to the audience here to see if there are any questions that myself, Charles, or the steering committee here of the lab would be able to answer. So thank you very much. and open the floor for questions. If there are any questions anybody would like to ask about the Research Hub. Yeah, please go ahead. If you can wait to receive the microphone just for the benefit of the live streaming of the event. Thank you very much.
Aggelos, I guess this details of this probably will be in the call, just to get a sense of it. Is there some sort of time horizon of how long the projects are supposed to be for, and like what sorts of things that can be funded? Like, is it just people time? Is it like hardware? Is it other things like that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. We will not want to sort of second guess or micromanage too much of this. There are truly interdisciplinary research coming from different areas may have quite different requirements about what it makes sense to ask. So just looking ahead a little bit about how this call for proposal is going to look like, we're going to welcome small projects, large projects, certainly projects that are going to be funding both students or young researchers are going to be very strongly encouraged. As it also was the case, I have to say, the sister research hub was launched in August at Stanford, and there as well, like it was a very strong theme to support even student-proposed research or small-scale research. And certainly, I think that would be really great to see many both small-scale projects as well as some large-scale projects proposed in the area. Then it would be, of course, the hard job of the steering committee to figure out which one of those would be sort of maximizing the impact, would have the best potential for that. But I think like we will not restrict in any fundamental way the structure and what is going to be asked in every case. So as I said, research impact and relevance to blockchain technology would be like the main driving themes here.
Thanks.
Yeah, another one. Thank you, Tariq. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Any thoughts of expanding to other departments? Because I'm thinking, for example, the Department of Arts, now that the NFTs are in there, and political science, because of the governance.
So we already have presence with at Arts. So just to be clear, the steering committee here, just because they're coming from obviously a subset of all the schools that are in the university, they're all senior academics, and they have the ability to assess proposals basically coming from every area. That was like an important aspect here, that all areas are very much welcome, and certainly I think like I would be myself, but also I think the steering committee delighted to see proposals related to arts or design, using NFTs. And I have to say already, the School of Law has already was doing research with Professor Schaefer on the topic of intellectual property of related to art and content producers. So that's something that's quite native at what has happened in the university, and I certainly hope that we will see more projects funded in this theme from that scheme. It's a question down there. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So I have a question about impact. So you said that one way to evaluate those proposals will be, how much impact they may generate. Have you thought about the process of how we can make sure that we drive that impact? So what I mean by that, well, here at the university we do research. We have some ideas how our research might play out and be implemented, but we also need some help from people that will be using this technology, ecosystem on Cardano, for example, that could pick that ideas quickly and test run it, provide the feedback, what we've missed. Have you thought about it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Maybe, first of all, I should say Cardano has a very active community. Perhaps Charles wants to comment on that. There's a very active community of people that are developing on Cardano, and I think like many members of that community would be eager to engage with with researchers that are developing new cool ideas that potentially could be implemented, I would expect also some of them might be interested to also develop. So I don't know, Charles, if you want to add something to
Yeah,
that.
I mean, impact is one of those definition of obscenity things. Like I'll let you know when I see it, type of a deal. It's hard to say, especially because it's a temporal component. So academia is littered with an enormous amount of research where at the time it was being done, no one particularly cared too much about it, and then somebody found a use for it years later. And I guess that's the difference between pure and applied research in that respect. But what's nice about the blockchain space is that often the hardest problems come from industry where it's not a hypothetical, we're actually trying to solve that particular issue. Whether it is how do you build a decentralized protocol that's high throughput and has fast finality and good security properties, but yet is completely decentralized, that is actually a super hard problem, and many great teams are working at it. Or, we have billions of users, and how do we orchestrate and manage all those users and create a governance system for all of them? Impact, probably, if I was writing a proposal, my suggestion would be to connect it to the real world problems and also connect it to the downstream impact of solving those particular problems. For example, if you solve a voting system problem in the blockchain space, you may have inadvertently come up with a new and interesting way of doing corporate governance to change a corporation to some form of new type of cooperative. If you find a way to bind intellectual property to an NFT for an art project, you may have inadvertently found a way to do IP for patents or the biotechnology industry or these types of things. So that imagination of the downstream effects is certainly one thing. The other thing is that great artists steal. So there's an enormous amount of competing teams, and you have to look for the level of interest, and you have to look for the level of publications and these types of things. And almost always in the hot areas of the space, there's dozens of interesting teams. So probably good to ask, well, what is so novel about this approach that we need a new approach? And maybe there's a way to collaborate or work together. Part of this family is more than just Scotland and Edinburgh. It's there's researchers at Stanford now. There's a formal mathematics lab in Carnegie Mellon. There's people at University of Connecticut. They're all over the world. So finding ways to connect to those labs and be interinstitutional in addition to interdisciplinary is probably a good leading indicator that there's something there.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
All right, so I think we should thank Charles.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much. Okay, and I think we will just go right ahead to the next and final session of this morning, which is going to be 2 talks. The first, it will be my great pleasure to introduce my colleague, Markus Kiayias, who is launching a new and sister laboratory to the Blockchain Technology Lab, the Zero Knowledge Laboratory, an extremely important topic. So I will invite Markus to come on stage and start the presentation. And I'll just say, just after that, we'll have a talk on the topic of the talk on the topic of new technology that's coming in the Cardano platform as its next development, let's say, in scaling the Cardano infrastructure. But first, Zero Knowledge Lab with Dr. Markus Kiayias. So.